and welcome back to Lost in Science for 2025. This is half an hour on your radiogram or similar item where you can listen to us talk about science on that said device. My name's Stu, and with me on the show this week I have Linden.
G'day, Stu. Good to be back. 2025. Let's do it.
Yeah, it is good to be back, and it's also nice to be in the same room as people for a change.
Yeah.
Recording a radio show, which is what we have been doing remotely for quite a long time.
Yeah, but there are still hygiene practices here in this studio.
It's true. It's true. We can't forget that there are messages on the walls telling us to clean things and wipe everything down when we're finished and all of those things. I did have to remember how to use the desk. That's by the by. I've also got Chris. Hi, Chris.
Oh, hi, Stu. Yes, I'm here too.
If you were wondering if I was putting on a voice, no, it was Chris responding. Now, Linden, you've brought in a story for us. What are you going to be talking about on the show?
I'm going to be talking about everyone's favourite activity, everybody's New Year's resolution. It's February already. I'm going to be talking about flossing.
The dance?
Well, you'll just have to wait and see, Stu. You'll have to wait and see. Okay. The dance, the dental practice, you'll have to wait to find out.
One or the other may be people's favourite activity, or neither,
exactly,
in fact.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to children. Chris, you've also got a story.
I do, and I am focusing on the dance. No, because I don't think people's New Year's resolution will be to do the dance flossing. I got to say, I'm skeptical of that one.
Well, I think now that we're talking about it, it might be mine because I don't know how to do the flossing, and I should practice.
Yeah, learn a skill for the new year.
Yeah.
That could be your aim for 2025. It's not too late to make a New Year's resolution.
I'm just going to do the dance for 10 minutes in the studio. It'll be great radio. I'm looking forward to it.
It might be a retro dance by now.
It is a retro dance.
It
is. Yeah, I looked it up. It was like late 2010s, apparently.
Yeah, okay. All right. Sorry, kids.
I'm a bit more current. There has been a lot of science in the time since we were last did one of these shows, and it can be hard to know what to do. Bit overwhelming, but myself, I couldn't go past the fact that 2025 has been declared the quantum year. The International Year of Quantum Science and Technology, I believe, is what it is.
That's right.
Yes, it is, yeah. And me, I love a bit of quantum myself, and also an excuse to just rabbit on about quantum physics. So I thought, what a great opportunity. I am going to talk a little bit about, well, I suppose what the year is about, why we're having a quantum year, and a little bit about what it is marking, I suppose. And we'll go from there. I'm excited. I'm going to do a whole series of quantum stories this year. I'm finding an excuse to talk about more of this stuff because I reckon people are going to like it.
Quantum year on Lost in Science as well. That sounds wonderful.
I mean, it is one of those words that gets thrown into things. I mean, people talk about quantum energy and things like this, but they're not really talking about science. They're talking about other things.
We will touch on that a little bit. But no, when I looked this up, I started doing it correct on your search engine, and one of the first things that came up was quantum of the seas, which I'd never heard of. So I accepted that. And quantum of the seas is a massive cruise ship, it seems. So yeah, you thought quantum of solace was a weird name. Quantum of the seas now is an even weirder name for a big ship.
Well, that's good because isn't a quantum a very small amount?
Yeah, well, yeah, generally.
So it should be a very small ship. Anyway, we'll talk more about quantum later on in the show, so please stay tuned.
Welcome back. You are listening to Lost in Science, half an hour all about science, broadcast all across the community radio network in Australia. And today I wanted to start with a question, ask you guys, maybe it's a personal question. It's a safe space though, so you can be honest. Did you floss your teeth today?
No.
No. But
there's a but. Righto, here we go.
There's a but, and I don't normally floss. I got to say that. But to me, that would be more of like a nighttime before bed thing. So I wouldn't come in here pre-flossed. I don't think.
Okay.
I did, however, use a toothpick.
Oh.
Interesting.
Old school.
That's the thing, isn't it? So that's the role of...
I've got something stuck in my tooth. I get a toothpick.
You're going to
That's
get
what
it
I
out.
do.
That's right. And people have been doing that for ages, whether it's a toothpick or a business card or horsehair or whatever it is that you can find.
A
People have been...
stick off the ground.
Stick off your fingernail, whatever it is, your tongue.
Those fish that swim around and no, that's not a thing, is it? What is it? Or maybe the
just have a
birds that
dream
pick at
of
your
that?
teeth. No? Am I thinking of like sharks?
Hippos?
Yeah.
Hippos having
hippos.
birds that pick their teeth from.
Yeah.
If you've got your own shoulder bird that is picking food out of your teeth, congratulations to you. But for those of us who don't have those, generally we can use a toothpick or we can use floss. Floss has been around for like a couple of 100 years in various forms. First it was silk and now it's nylon. We could talk a little bit about the sustainability of that, but
I was concerned you were going to say, oh, they used to use pig guts or something. They're like, there's all those things. No, you don't?
I did
Silk?
see.
Yeah?
Look, I saw horsehair was mentioned in a couple of things that I looked at, but that hasn't.
There's probably an animal that was driven to extinction because its tail was used for flossing. And it'd be a sad story.
Well, the main point of floss is to get out the stuff that your toothbrush can't get out, right? Its goal is to get out those things that are between your teeth so you don't get gum disease, so it stops you from getting cavities, yeah? And you guys were telling me off air that you've both been doing this show for nearly 15 years, and so you might have covered this back in 2015 or 2016 when actually there was a bit of controversy around floss because the American government left flossing off their health guidelines. They said, I know, the drama of it. They said there is not enough evidence to show that flossing is good for your teeth. There's not enough scientific evidence. There was this big freedom of information thing. The American government was called to account by saying if you've got these guidelines, they have to be supported by the science. Where's the science, government?
I do recall this, and as someone who is not a regular flosser, it was news to my ears.
It was used to everyone's ears, right? Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons why there's not much science around it, because why would there be no high quality, reproducible trials about the benefit of flossing?
I mean, is there a lot of dental science research?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there is. Yeah.
Stacks.
Yeah, they love it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, look, there isn't, but as you're saying, like, is there a lot of money in it? I guess there is an industry that sells floss, but you have to, pay for a clinical trial to get good quality evidence. I mean, a randomized controlled trial also would be hard to do because people know whether or not they're flossing.
Yep.
So there's a lot of, complicated things.
Exactly. And you want to follow people for a long time. And most of the studies about flossing are self-reported, right? And we're in a safe space. So you guys have answered honestly to me. But if you were being interviewed for a study about your flossing behaviours, you'd say, of course, yes, of course I did.
Absolutely
Of
floss
course.
my teeth
Exactly.
every hour on the hour.
People lie. And so there wasn't enough evidence. And so in 2015, the American government ripped it from their guidelines. They put it back.
It is back?
It's back. It
Okay.
got back in 2010, 2015. It was put back in the guidelines not long after much consternation from the dentistry societies and the dentistry organisations around the world. Of course, because, while there's not a lot of concrete evidence that flossing is good, there's also not much evidence that flossing is bad for you.
Yeah, are there any incidents where people have had terrible flossing accidents?
But hang on, something just can't just be safe to be recommended. I mean, that's not enough surely to recommend it. Otherwise, I'm sure there are also safe pills you could take. You don't take a pill just because it's not going to kill you.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But I guess if the main scientific body, if the Professional Society of Dentists is saying, look, there might not be a lot of really hard evidence, but
we like it.
Well, we know that removing stuff between your teeth is important.
The theory is behind it.
Exactly.
There's a theory behind it.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. But all of this I was reading about because I've got a dentist appointment this week and I wanted to check out the science when my dentist tells me.
You can argue with your dentist
yes,
about
Linden, you haven't been
whether
flossing.
you're doing the right thing. Yeah.
So I was quite taken by a conference abstract that got a bit of media attention just this week that said flossing your teeth can or may lower your risk of having a stroke.
That's a long. I was going to say it's a long bow to draw. Can you string a bow with dental
Yeah,
floss?
it's a long floss-lined bow
Yeah.
to draw, isn't it?
I have encountered this kind of stuff before.
Yeah.
As some people may know, I don't talk about it much on the air because I like to bring my day job into this thing. I work in the field of stroke, and yeah, we have encountered this notion that it's all about the oral health. There is the dentist basically trying to take over cardiovascular disease, essentially, and trying to claim that, yeah, it's all about your oral health is going to drive your cardiovascular health. And that hasn't caught on outside the dentistry community, basically.
Is that some sort of correlation they've picked up? Because it seems that someone who doesn't take care of their dental health may not take care of other parts of their health as well. So is there just that?
It's more a theoretical thing that essentially that infections in the gums will lead to systemic inflammation, which then leads to arteriosclerosis, hardening arteries, like inflammation in the arteries and that sort of thing. So that's kind of the theory. And as I said, the dental scientists have done a lot of research that they think backs it up, but the people who study arteries and brains and stuff haven't quite caught on to this idea yet.
Interesting. I'd forgotten about your stroke connection there, Chris. You can take this
Oh,
story.
no. I want to hear what they have to say.
Well, this is it, right? So it was a long study. It started in the 80s. It was studying over 6,000 people where they monitored, what their health was like beforehand. They checked their risks. They checked other factors, all of these kinds of things. They checked their other oral health behaviours, and then they identified who was flossing and who wasn't flossing. And, the results are all given in percentages, but it's saying that there was 3 different types of strokes that I think were reduced if you flossed versus if you didn't floss, up to 44% reduction in a particular kind of stroke, which I can't remember the name of, but I can check.
How long have they followed them up over?
They followed them. The study started in the late 80s.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. And it was over 6,000 people, over 25 years of follow-up. I think it was like 7% of people had strokes from the cohort. And there was a 22% lower risk of blocked artery stroke, a 44% lower risk of a blood clot pumped into the brain, and 12% lower risk of an irregular heart rhythm. Comparing people who flossed, who self-reported that they flossed, versus people who didn't.
I mean, that's always going to be an issue, isn't it? The self-reporting.
Exactly.
It's always
this
going
is
to have
the
a bit
thing.
of a question
I'm
mark
not.
over it.
I'm not bringing this to the table saying, check out this amazing science.
Yeah.
I'm bringing this to the table with some arched eyebrows, saying, okay, when you see a study like that, what do you want to look at? You say, okay, well, it's an abstract in a conference. It hasn't been peer-reviewed yet. It's a study that is self-reported. There's a reason why there's not a lot of strong evidence for the benefit of flossing over time, because it's a really hard thing to monitor. And the connection between one part of the body and the other, in this case, you really, you have to know a lot about it to understand how that might work.
And also they've got a few different kinds of stroke there. I'm assuming that by, say, a blood clot, you mean one directly in the brain that is causing a stroke. The other one would be a thromboembolic one, which you have basically a blood clot that forms, say, in the heart or somewhere else in the body that travels to the brain. The irregular heartbeat, that is also creates a blood clot within the heart, but it's a completely different mechanism. It's not to do with, blocked arteries and that sort of thing. So the fact that would be different as well, it's kind of like suspicious, is this causing everything, essentially? But also, the main thing for me is the number is actually pretty low, like 6,000 people. I mean, most epidemiological studies for stroke have like hundreds of thousands of people involved in them, or at least 10,000, I suppose. It's a low number for that kind of, to get that size of statistics, I suppose.
Yeah, and to be breaking it into different stroke types among that already small number, you're like,
I mean, you said 7% of people had a stroke.
Yeah.
That's not absolute numbers. It's not a large number of people.
No.
Yeah.
No. So I suppose if you're looking for a reason to continue to floss your teeth, maybe you can cling to something here, but I'm not saying this is excellent science, and I'll be interested to see how that session goes at the stroke conference in America later in the week.
Well, the fact that they're reporting at the stroke conference and not at a dentistry conference is promising as well, though.
Oh,
so it is kind of being discussed by the mainstream kind of stroke community, which is that's a promising thing.
Well, maybe watch this space.
I think we're lost.
We're not lost.
Not even any short-range radio signals yet?
Except for a single, very powerful radio emission.
Of course, a transmitter of that sort isn't exactly standard equipment.
Science and technology must be absolutely mind-boggling.
Of course, it's mostly on the theoretical side.
Well, so far.
Across Australia on the Community Radio Network, you're listening to Lost in Science.
Okay, yes, listen to Lost in Science. And as I said earlier, 2025 is the International Year of Quantum Science and Technology. And I don't know how much attention you all pay to your international years. Like every year is the International Year of several things, usually, isn't it?
It's usually more than one thing. I mean, I remember a couple of years ago was the International Year of Glass.
Oh, really?
Really?
Yeah. I did a story about what glass is and that it's not a liquid. Remember, you always hear that. People say, oh, glass is a liquid. It's not a liquid. It's a solid. It's a weird solid, but it's a solid. But yeah, they had a whole year to talk about glass.
Okay. Sometimes, yeah, it's a bit more transparent than other times. However, now this was got me because the thing is celebrating our 100-year anniversary, as you'd imagine, of 2025, and I wasn't sure what they were celebrating for what happened in 1925. That was so big. So I had a look at their website. But I'm normally fairly good at my science history, but I couldn't remember 1925, and I feel actually embarrassed saying that now. And these things, I don't want to criticize the International Year groups, but their website is not the greatest.
Next year is the International Year of Websites.
Yeah.
Was it built in 1925?
Their news functionality, like if you click on their news articles, you don't actually get anything. I mean, that kind of thing. And their about page, which I thought would tell me what I was all about, was not terribly helpful. It did list their themes, their missions, which itself is kind of enlightening, and maybe says something about the nature of what we're talking about in the quantum year. So their missions, I think all their things, whatever they go, they had things, some of them were like general sort of stuff like have fun, because why wouldn't you have fun with quantum physics? And some of them were general kind of about, I think, scientific aims, like everyone is invited is one, which is kind of like a diversity kind of theme, which is, I think good to mention in science, especially when this is a field that has, say, as you would imagine, women who contributed to quantum physics who have been forgotten and overlooked. And of course, globally, is seen in certain countries. But, the quantum year was actually suggested by Ghana, of all countries. So, it is for everyone. But some of them got things like, no one owns quantum science, I guess, is one of their things. Recognize consensus, honor dissent, and admit ignorance. Basically, they're trying to read the description that it says, don't think you know everything. Yes, if you're inclined to present or seek out a story, just be careful. Make note of what is still unknown, because a lot of people assume a lot of stuff. Help others find reliable quantum information, because as you can imagine, there is a lot of unreliable and untrue misinformation out there regarding quantum science. Model the ideals of scientific conduct and be honest.
Hang on, is this a year for the globe to celebrate quantum science, or is this a year for quantum scientists to get themselves together by the sound of it?
It's sounding as having a go, isn't it? And I just thought I would mention that, because that is kind of an interesting thing. They're already making you a bit skeptical of what's going to happen in this year. The fact that Microsoft is involved, don't worry about that.
Well, but I mean, I was going to say before, one of the things that often comes up in tech literature is the quantum computing goal, which they've been sort of talking about for years, but haven't really actually got a computer that's a quantum computer yet, have they?
There are kind of, I suppose, it's safe to call them rudimentary quantum computers.
Right.
People keep talking about when they're going to achieve quantum supremacy, which is when quantum computers can do things that normal computers can't. And there have been there was a claim, I think, a couple of years ago that there was I think it might have been Google's quantum computer, I could be wrong on this, so don't quote me on this, had achieved quantum supremacy on some particular calculation. And then some people showed an algorithm they could do it on a normal computer, and I think they did it on an Amiga computer to show that it could be done with very simple
Wow.
technology. Anyway, so yeah, we haven't quite achieved quantum supremacy yet. So it's all about, that's where someone like Microsoft is involved. They're trying to like boost this whole kind of future quantum technology, which I'm looking forward to. But I thought I would have a look at what is this, the basis of this. Let's go step back and what are we talking about here? It turned out I didn't need to look at the about page, just the description on the front page makes it clear. It recognises 100 years since the initial development of quantum mechanics.
Oh,
Right.
And that's the key thing. It's quantum mechanics is what we're talking about here, which is essentially the quantum theory that has given us everything that we have today and is distinct from the old quantum theory, which was for about 25 years before that, which is probably the one that you know a lot about anyway. So look, a brief recap. In the year 1900, Max Planck did Planck's law, which was about quanta of energy being emitted in thermal radiation. He did not invent planking, which was another internet phase. We're talking about flossing. Internet phase of 2011, I think, was planking. And then in 1905, Einstein published his paper on the photoelectric effect, which is kind of the opposite side of thing of quanta of energy being absorbed in light, essentially showing that light was photons, was particles of energy. These two physicists won Nobel Prizes for these achievements in 1918 and 1921, respectively. So by 1925, that kind of thing was already well established. People were trying to understand what this meant for, atoms, for matter, and that sort of thing. So, and essentially, 1925 is when they figured it out, what it all meant, and gave us quantum mechanics, which is essentially, it's the quantum equivalent of Newton's laws of motion, I suppose. There's the basic rules that govern how things behave at a quantum level. Okay, and so as you can imagine, it is quite complicated and mathematical and hard to explain without pointing at formulas and drawing diagrams and that sort of thing.
Wasn't that one of the things Richard Feynman said about quantum physics, was that if someone said that they understood it, they probably were making that up?
Yes, this is true. So this is going to be my my little disclaimer here, that I am going to attempt to give you a brief overview of what this is about. But yes, it is complicated. It is bizarre. Einstein himself struggled with it in his later years. He had big arguments with the other creators of quantum theory, and he won a Nobel Prize for it. So, and he struggled with it. So it's okay to say it doesn't make sense. Also, pretty much because it is something that works with a realm that we don't experience in day-to-day life, there is no direct analogy to what we have around us. So all analogies are wrong. So I'm going to give analogies. Perhaps they're going to be wrong. So, don't tell me I'm wrong, because I know already that it's wrong.
All models are wrong. That's what
Essentially,
you say, isn't it? And an analogy is just kind of a model. Well, that was going to be my question. If we can't explain it without using a beautiful, complex blackboard full of mathematical equations, then is there a description of how these laws are used in everyday life?
Well, that's
isn't solid state electronics based on
essentially, yeah. Well, that's the thing. We're talking about quantum computers, like our non-quantum computers, also based on quantum mechanics. But look, now the basic thing we're talking about here, you've heard of like the wave particle duality situation, haven't you?
Yep.
Like, is light a wave or is it a particle? Are electrons waves or particles? That sort of thing. And so this, to me, is what this quantum mechanics equations are about, is kind of resolving that issue, essentially. And the way I think of it, in my incorrect analogy, it's like tomatoes.
Okay.
You've got heaps of them because it's been a hot summer?
I do have quite a few tomatoes, actually, yeah.
They get riper the more they sit in the sun?
The question is tomato a fruit or a vegetable?
Oh.
Yes.
Explain, Stu.
So culinarily, it is a vegetable because it's used in cooking as a vegetable. Botanically, it's a fruit. It's actually a berry because it has all the seeds inside it, and basically any seed-bearing part of a plant is a fruit. So it is both a vegetable and a fruit.
There you go. That is absolutely the point I was trying to make. It depends on the context. It depends on what sort of question you're asking and why you're asking the question. And that's what we find when you're trying to say, is say an electron, a wave, or a particle. It depends on the measurement that you're making. So it's essentially both. physicists use the terms basically interchangeably. You know, we talk about particles being described by a wave function, and we talk about, you know, particles are waves. It's uncontroversial to physicists, but it is something that does your head in the first time you think about it. But the wave function is a thing that matches a particle, and if you're trying to think of it as a particle, the wave function is what gives you the probability that you will find it at a certain place if you're trying to measure the particle's position. And this was essentially the big kind of discovery that came out of the year 1925 when they're trying to grapple with this whole notion. So as I said, they had this theory that worked for light, essentially. They had, in the previous years, there was a theory for the hydrogen atom where they had looking at electrons as little particles orbiting in nice little kind of elliptical orbits around the atom, and they could describe that the orbits of a hydrogen atom pretty well, but it did not work for molecules, did not work for helium atoms and that sort of thing. Werner Heisenberg was the first to figure it out, this German physicist. He had a bad bout of hay fever, something that I have at the moment. I'm a bit blocked in my nose, I can feel it. But he had a bad bout of hay fever, he had a little break, and while he was having his little hay fever break, he figured out essentially that it made no sense to think of electrons as particles whizzing around in orbits, that the whole thing was wrong. You just basically had to think about the mathematics of it and how you describe, essentially the results of experiments you're going to get. Forget about thinking about them actually particles, just describe the mathematics and the probabilities. He came with this very complicated matrix mechanics, which people no longer really use it in the form he thought of it. Thankfully, later that year, Schrödinger came up with his Schrödinger equation, which you may have heard of, which describes how wave functions evolve over time. And this was a much better way of understanding the dynamics of these things. And from there, we could figure out, I guess, how these waves that describe the particles would behave under certain conditions, under forces and energy and this sort of thing. And for that, you could predict where your particles were going to be. That's a lot of bells and whistles added onto this, but it's basics of what quantum mechanics is.
So in the year of quantum, 2025, what do you think we should expect, apart from you talking about this a bit more on the show? Yeah. Will there be a lot of parties, a lot of equations being graffitied on walls? There will be
some conferences. There are some conferences planned. There's one in Ghana, of course, and there's another one, I think, in Brazil. And I think there's going to be a conference in Heligoland, which is where Heisenberg went to for his hay fever break. Apart from that, the events calendars I've looked at are strangely blank. But here in Australia, the Quantum Year is being run by the Australian Institute of Physics. They have a website, I think it's quantum2025.org.au. So they want people to put on events and celebrate the year. So you can go there if you want to hold a quantum event. You can register it or not register it. Haha, little quantum joke. I hate that particular joke. Anyway, but I made it, so apologies to everyone. But yeah, there is hopefully going to be a lot of things on. Who knows? As I said, these things often are kind of thrown together. There's a lot of international years that pass by that people don't really notice. But I'm going to keep reminding people of it, and I think that's the best thing that I can do.
And that is all we have time for this week on Lost in Science. Thank you for joining us in Getting Lost. If you have any questions or suggestions for the team, get in touch with us by email. We are lostinsci@gmail.com. You can send cheap tweets to us at lostinscience1 on Twitter, or you can find us on the ubiquitous Facebook. Lost in Science is recorded at the studios of 3CR in Melbourne on the land of the Kulin Nation and is broadcast across Australia on the Community Radio Network with the assistance of the Community Broadcasting Foundation. You can find a podcast version of the show on 3cr.org.au, or you can tune in the way you did this week when we return in our usual time slot to get Lost in Science!
Thanks for listening to a 3CR podcast. 3CR is an independent community radio station based in Melbourne, Australia. We need your financial support to keep going. Go to www.3cr.org.au for more information and to donate online.